Okay, ready to go? I guess I should step on because this feels very, I'm off screen.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first ever Ask Us Anything virtual session. My name is Mallory Bombright. I'm the Community Relations Director for the district, and I will be serving as the moderator for this evening's session. You will be hearing from these wonderful people here. We have Becky Tompkins, our Director of Curriculum, Jenny Logan, our Treasurer, Mr. Chad Lewis, our Superintendent, Kelly Wagner, our Assistant Superintendent, and Mr. Brad Lovell, our Director of Business Operations and Student Operations.
Yep, you got it.
All the things.
This team is going to do their very best to answer as many questions as we possibly can in the short amount of time that we have with you all today. We will, just a couple of housekeeping items. We will be taking questions through the chat. I will be filtering those to the team. They'll answer them for you. I ask that when you submit a question, you include your name and your relation to the district, whether you're a parent, community member, staff member. That just gives us a little perspective, and then we know who we're answering. We will not be answering any student-specific questions. Those really should be directed to your building administration. If you have a problem with your student, make sure that those are directed that way. We won't be doing that here tonight. As a reminder, we have student privacy laws that will prevent us from having specific student discussions. And I think that's about it. This is being recorded. We will put it on YouTube tomorrow. So if you know someone who didn't get a chance to log on, they'll have the opportunity to hear everything. So with that being said, we'll get started. And I'm over Mallory. All right. So let's see. Questions? Anyone have questions?
And you need to admit everybody that's still in there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There we go. All right. Okay, we've got a couple more people joining us too. Hang on.
I guess we could just say a shout out to everybody that came to the open house at the junior high.
Yes.
And very well attended.
Yes.
It was great to see our community, the kids.
The kids.
We're leading the tours, cutting the ribbon. It was pretty cool. So I don't know how many folks are on here that were able to stop by from, what was it, 6 to 7? I was going to say 7 to 8, but that's not right.
Yeah, 6 to 7.
It's good.
Yeah.
It was great to hear from Greg Cole, the junior high principal there, because he is a Sycamore grad and he went through the old building and now he's leading in the new building. And so that was just a nice kind of retrospective to hear from him and his perspective.
Yeah.
So we already have a question from Maggie Gunnarsson. She's a parent in the district. She asks, what are your thoughts around healthy start times for high school?
That's a great question. And, you know, it's not lost on us that healthy start times for high school students gets asked on a regular basis. And there are so many different layers to it. I would say as a school board and as a school district office team and also an administrative team, we're very open to looking at that. And actually, it is one of our Sycamore Advisory Commission projects this year to really dig deep into our healthy school start times. But people definitely have to understand that we have a 3-tiered transportation system. And so any change that we would make at the front of our system, which is where our high school exists, it certainly impacts the start times and end times for the rest of our buildings. So it's certainly a complicated matrix that we have to balance, you know, the need for healthier start times for our high school students, but also what does that do to our intermediate junior high school students in the middle routes, and then our elementary students at the end of our route. So Mr. Lovell, I don't know if you have any other perspective on that.
I was just going to piggyback and say another challenge that we have specifically at the high school is athletics as well.
Oh,
We have to navigate around the league and when we have games and tournaments and things like that. And not that that necessarily drives education, but it's a bigger factor that is an outside influence into how we operate our buildings.
So then the league, just to clarify, so the league, the GMC, they set the start times for the events and those types of the matches, games, whatever they happen to be.
Yep, has to do with how far schools away are, they have to travel in. There's just a lot, to Mr. Lewis's point, there's a lot of variables that go into it. that have to be considered.
And I will say, one of the great things that I will say this district, I know we're not scared to take on tough challenges and tough discussions. And I will say that is one that's, it's going to be a very difficult problem to try to solve, but we're open to, you know, taking a look at it and seeing what we can do to take care of that and see if we can make an impact on it.
Right. Our next question is from Erica Magnus, and she is a community member. Was curious about the increase in home values and how that's going to impact tax bills coming up in January.
Very
Great
timely,
question.
very timely question.
It is a very timely question. And so we get our tax bills twice a year. And so in January sometime, we will be seeing new tax bills.
Okay.
And those new tax bills will show your new value of your home, which in Hamilton County, we are going through a revaluation process in this county. So, and we have been told that the increases are quite drastic. And we're seeing that in some of the other counties around the state as well. But one of the things that I think people don't really understand the way that taxes work, it's way too complex. But in basic terms, there is something that is put in place that will not allow us to collect extra money for inflationary purposes. So your home value is increasing because of inflationary reasons. You know, I think everybody's aware that they see what homes are being sold at and values are increasing. But our state put something in place back in the 70s when this was kind of happening back then. And so what happens is when you look at your tax bill, there's a millage rate that is being collected, and that's how you pay your taxes. The way that this works is as your value increases, that millage is rolled back, it is decreased. So effectively, we do not collect more from the taxpayers on their bill. So if their value increases, yes, they will see some increases in values or increases in their taxes, but overall, that rate will decrease. The millage rate will decrease. So it is helpful, and we're hoping, we're talking about maybe some type of community engagement somewhere around January where we can talk more about that to our community, because we do know that that is something that is on their minds. It's on our minds as well. Also, just as a shout out, and I know Mallory, you mentioned this, one thing that we do want to mention, the junior high, we just opened that wonderful facility, and we look around and we know that this community overwhelmingly supports its schools. And the last bond issue that was approved, we are actually collecting less millage than what we estimated we would need to collect back when that was approved. And it's 0.65 less mills that we are collecting from our taxpayers. So that's a good thing. I know that you mentioned, you know, we were in that sweet spot when we went into this construction phase, and it could have been so much worse. We've seen some of our other school districts who have not been as lucky with the construction pricing and things like that. But to our community, we are actually collecting less than what we thought we were going to need to collect for all those reasons.
So Mrs. Logan, just so that our community knows, because I know people are jumping on later, you're our school treasurer.
Yes.
And you're talking about, you know, millage, and that as people's property value goes up, the school district is not collecting any additional tax dollars or an increase to any funding that comes to us. Is that correct? I just want to make sure it's clear, because if you don't understand all the different components of millage and taxes.
It's very complex, but simplistically, to put it in the simplest terms, if we had a levy, which we did have a levy in 2016, that was the last time our community approved an operating levy for this district. So let's just say that that levy was supposed to collect $15 million. That's how much money was supposed to be generated from that new levy. Effectively, the way this is supposed to work, and let's say that was 5 mils. This is just for purposes of simplistically. So if 5 mils generated $15 million in 2016, as the values of the properties increase over that time period, that millage is decreased from 5 mils to 4.5 or whatever it takes to effectively still collect $15 million.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Hopefully that.
Yeah,
helps.
that's very
Yeah.
helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the next question is from Victoria Margam. She's a parent. She asked about the high school stadium being used as a multi-purpose facility. Please explain to the community how the stadium is being used currently as a multi-purpose facility.
Want to take that one, or you want me to?
I think we can tackle it
Yeah.
both, right? So just to clarify the idea of multi-use stadium and where that came from, when we pursued building the stadium, moving the stadium to the high school site, because if everybody can remember, the high school football games were played at the junior high, and because of construction, we moved over to the high school to put the stadium there. When we went towards that project, what we said is that this is not just a football stadium. It is a multi-purpose stadium that is going to be used by multiple sports and groups. And that includes community groups as well. And so the other thing I think is important for everyone to understand is that here at district office, we don't determine who uses the fields. There is a facility use process that is put in place that the operations team manages. But when it comes to athletic events and things like that, the athletic department at the high school is the one that manages the fields over there. And so we work in collaboration with them to ensure that all the proper documentation and everything exists to be able to have folks out there. Currently, I know that we have had the, obviously football. We've also had soccer out there occasionally. I think Mr. Hardin told me we have Little Aves youth football on the weekends. I know we've had multiple events out there as well that were non-athletic events that we've used the stadium for. But when we talk about like outside of athletics, we talk about the band, we talk about, there's just so many different types of programs that can leverage that field.
And I would say the other thing that got, I would say, misinterpreted or misconstrued and got corrected by our youth football program was that the stadium was not being allowed to be used by our youth football program, which turned out to not be accurate. Youth football, I know on Saturday and Sunday, every Saturday and Sunday, we're using our facility because we had facility workers to have to run the scoreboard and the sound for our youth football program. So I think it is an absolute gift for our community to have all of these great facilities and great turf fields within the district, and we want them to be used by our community. So if you ever get a sense that someone or you feel like you've heard that a group is being not allowed to use the facility, reach out to Mr. Lovell, reach out to me. We will make sure that situation gets rectified, because we want our community to use those facilities. Certainly we have to take precedence for our high school teams, and we've had some challenges with just still finishing construction, but overall, hey, we want everyone to use those facilities, and we welcome more and more students, and especially our younger students, being on those facilities.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Carrie Krista, she's a parent of a Sycamore high schooler in 7th grader, wants to know, when will personal learning days conclude?
I'm assuming student personal learning
Yes.
days, right?
Yep.
So this is the last calendar year, I believe, that we have the student personal
Yes.
learning days on the calendar, and those were placed there because we had to squeeze the calendar because of construction the past couple of years. So yeah, so this will be the last year that we will have those.
Okay. Let's see. Sorry, this is hard to see everyone's chats here. Let's see, Jessica Conway, she is a parent of a Mapledale student and another future Mapledale student.
All right.
Wondering what plans are to move half-day kindergarten back to Mapledale? If there are any plans to do that?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. We try to make sure that we utilize our staffing to the best of our ability, and that means being efficient and effective with the use of our staffing. And at the time we had to make some decisions. I think we had fewer than 6 kindergartners for half day enrolled at Mapledale. So when we had some additional space at Montgomery, we just chose to combine those classes and make that work from a standpoint of just efficiency of resources and operational resources that are, really important for our district. So I would say we take a look at that every year. Certainly if there exists enough students that warrant being able to have a class there, we certainly want to be able to provide that for our community and for our students. But I will say, being someone that, I really do believe that it is our job to manage those valuable resources and those valuable tax dollars that you provide us to the best of our abilities. We will continue to look at that to make sure that we don't provide a teacher for 5 students just for a half-day kindergarten. So, we'll look at it. And again, if the enrollment is up, we will certainly be able to provide that right at Mapledale. So great question. Thank you for that.
Next question is and by the way, if you guys wouldn't mind, because people have kind of joined, they've requested that just state your name and who you are as you answer.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Okay, let's see, scrolling back up here. Amy Shaman, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your last name, parent of an E.H. Green student and new to the district. Her question is for Ms. Tompkins. What curriculum changes do you anticipate for Sycamore students, especially Green in the junior high in the next few years?
Oh, thank you. I'm Becky
question.
Tompkins. I know, I'm super excited about this one. I'm curriculum director for the district. So great question. So the district is taking a look at alignment for our 4 core content areas. So ELA, math, social studies, and science over the course of the upcoming several years. So last year we began a course of study process with our English language arts teachers, looking at vertical alignment from K to 12. So one important aspect that we're examining with our curriculum is ensuring that those critical junctures as students change buildings, so as they move from the elementary to Green to the junior high to the high school, from the student experience that they flow nicely, that they articulate well. So getting all of our teachers in the same room at the same time, K through 12, and be able to have conversations about curriculum. So certainly those alignment changes that will be in place as purposeful alignment of curriculum. Within that, we're taking a look at, so we want us to prepare all of our students to be prepared to reach their full potential in a globally competitive world. So within our curriculum units, what are some things that are going to help students to prepare that? So for instance, in English language arts, how are students reading challenging text? How are we integrating reading and writing together? How are students being able to have opportunities to speak and listen and engage in project-based learning and different kind of learning experiences? We're starting our math curriculum review this year, really being able to dig deep within math and looking at materials and resources. Again, knowing the importance of math coherence and alignment, and looking at resources in our curriculum to make sure, again, from that student experience that we're giving students a full experience within that content, not only within the content, but also as they grow as students throughout the course of their maturity. We'll start social studies with course of study next year and then end up with science. At the end of this process, what we hope is that we will have aligned curriculum units in our 4 core content areas, align materials and resources. We'll be able to have student experiences that are rich, that prepare students for the next level, not only while they're here at Sycamore, but as they leave us as well.
So also related to that, Meg Gunderson asked, and I don't know if you want to expand upon that at all, but what is currently being used, new, especially the advanced ELA for elementary schools being rolled out? Any pilots that are being done around that work?
Yeah, so I can definitely talk about advanced language arts. So our gifted model for advanced language arts is beginning in 3rd grade this year. So that really is the focus within 3rd grade. So our gifted coordinator and a wonderful Hamilton County gifted consultant is working with all of the 3rd grade language arts teachers to provide differentiated gifted services to our 3rd grade students with that gifted identification within the general education classroom. So we're exploring different resources. One is taking a look at depth and complexity. And so depth and complexity is certainly, it is a cognitive strategy, but there are depth and complexity icons that are, they're an outgrowth of a gifted guru named Jay Taylor. So really being able to say, this is the way that students are going to be able to both self-differentiate themselves with their gifted thinking, and for teachers to provide that scaffolding as well. So what we're looking for within that gen ed classroom are opportunities for extensions and curricular overlays. So what are some supplements that are going to be in those gen ed classrooms to provide students with that support?
Perfect. Ms. Tompkins,
Yes.
you had said early on, bringing teachers together in the same room. So just briefly, would you just highlight the involvement of the teachers, because their voice is so important?
Oh, thank you so much for asking that, Mrs. Wagner. Yes, so we're only through the 1st quarter, right? So already our 3rd grade teachers have met several times. So they've come together as collaborative groups in order to engage in professional learning with our supervisor of gifted programming and our Hamilton County gifted consultant. So that includes what are characteristics of gifted learners? What would differentiation within the gen ed classroom look like for a student identified as gifted in reading? So they have met, I believe, at least twice this year. Mrs. Jackson and Holly Mueller have visited schools as well to meet with teachers in the buildings. And we are actually in other grade levels as well. We're working with the teachers, pulling teachers within our ELA units to create gifted overlays or advanced honor overlays that will be on top of regular curriculum units to provide additional differentiation for our gifted and advanced students. Really, again, alignment across the curriculum.
All right, next question is from Trent Hershenson. Sorry, Trent, I mispronounced your last name. Parent of a high school student, wanted to know about how altercations are handled as far as when police, what's the line between discipline at the school level versus the legal system? If there aren't extenuating circumstances involved in a fight, such as a weapon, is it immediately turned over to the police, or are we addressing the issues at school itself?
So Trent, I appreciate the question. And, I will say first and foremost, we never want to create any concerns from parents or make them feel nervous about communication that we're trying to send out. We try to walk the fine line between keeping our parents well informed about what's going on and also balancing the need for privacy when dealing with student privacy issues such as disciplinary action. I'll just talk in general terms because I'm not going to address anything that happened between particular individual students, but I can use general terms. So what I would say is there is not a school in America, probably 7 through 12, that doesn't experience conflict and altercations between students. When you deal with this many teenagers on a daily basis, they're going to have conflict. We try to help them problem solve and resolve that conflict to the best of our abilities when we know about it. The issues is when we don't know about it and students take it into their own hands and decide to have a physical altercation. So I would say a physical altercation where there are mutual parties that engage in a fight situation or a physical situation, that is dealt with pretty typically at the building level without the involvement of police. I would say where it starts to engage police is if we believe an assault occurred or some violation in collaboration with the police, some violation of the law occurred. And typically that would be an assault. That would be something that would rise to the level of disorderly conduct. And then when that happens, we do feel the need to involve students. I will tell you from a superintendent level, sorry, I didn't say Chad Lewis superintendent, but from a superintendent level who has to make decisions about expelling students from school, I have a very low tolerance for physical altercations or fights in school. You know, that is not something that we're going to support. We're not going to lighten up on the discipline around that area. All students deserve to feel safe in school and not to have feeling the concern about a threat or a threat of violence. So I can tell you anyone that commits an assault is going to receive the harshest discipline along with charges from our police department. You know, again, physical altercations that, again, just kind of tumble over, we try to work and counsel those students, but it's a fine line between, you know, trying to maintain order within the school and also, you know, I don't think none of us enjoy involving the police, but when we need to, that is a tool that we understand exists for us when we feel the students have not only violated the student code of conduct, but also violated some laws of our area. So great question, Trent.
Do you mind if I jump in really
Please.
quick? Because I think that it's one of the questions we get all the time is maybe why aren't you telling us more about what's going on or things like that.
Yeah.
We have systems and processes that we have in place. There are kind of two buckets that we look at any incident. It's student safety, and that's not just the safety of the victim or the perpetrator, but the safety of the entire building. And the other kind of bucket is student rights and privacy. I think we can all appreciate the fact that we want to protect our students' right and their privacy in any situation.
Right.
And so we as a school have to navigate that line between those two things. We are so incredibly fortunate here in Sycamore that our community has supported having a resource officer at our high school. Anybody that knows Officer Payne from the city of Montgomery knows that he is all in it for kids. And so we are fortunate to have a resource officer that collaboratively works with us to, just like Mr. Lewis had said, by the way, I'm Brad Lovell, Director of Student Business and Student Operations. But Mr. Lewis kind of mentioned that like they help us walk that line as well to understand when is that right time to engage them. The other thing I did want to mention as well is that we have a robust threat assessment process that is outlined by the state of Ohio, but also is a part of our culture and what we do here that allows us the opportunity to identify the true risk associated with any type of incident that occurs, specifically those incidents that we categorize more on the threat level. That process helps us better understand, to Mr. Lewis's point, what the discipline looks like from the building and then what needs to happen from the law enforcement side. Our job as a district is to follow board policy and the code of conduct. The lever that we have to pull is student discipline. If it's an assault, like Mr. Lewis said, or something else, that's when we go to the law enforcement side.
Interventions that are put in place with the risk assessment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, obviously it's really hard. I feel like Mrs. Logan right now when she's trying to explain levies, right? Or not levies, but like taxes, millage and all that, right? Like it's really complicated because I think we can recognize and understand that every child is unique and every incident and situation is unique. But there are times that these threat assessments bring us to the point where we create safety plans for the student, things like that. So I hate to kind of brush it generally because it's very unique to the situation, but absolutely, we have processes, plans, we have teams. We have so many dedicated staff members that are committed to making our buildings safe so that learning can go on every day. And to Mr. Lewis's point, there's not a school in the nation that doesn't have altercations. We're not unique. So we just have to navigate it and do the best that we can.
And I would say on top of that, please understand, we are a public school district and it is our job to educate every single one of our students. Oftentimes when a student gets into an altercation, there are multiple layers of things that are going on with that student that have nothing to do with the altercation they involved in. So, you know, it is our job to provide a free and appropriate public education to every one of our students until they require us to take that right away from them. And it takes multiple incidents, I will say, for us to remove that ability to get education, especially within these great walls of our school district.
Thank you. Okay, Leslie Davis is a Green and high school parent. On the curriculum side of the questions, she asked, I lost her question. Here we go. What's the plan for students currently taking geometry to increase their chances of being, oh my gosh, I keep scrolling away. I'm so sorry. Too many questions coming into the chat. Hang on.
But that's a good problem to have.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. It keeps moving on me. Okay, so what's the plan for current students who currently taking geometry to increase their chances of better test scores? Since district, talking about the lower scores that we saw in geometry.
Yes.
Essentially that's it.
Yes, so as I mentioned earlier, we are in the process right now of going through a math course of study, So what the math course of study will do is to look at our current alignments, as well as materials and resources, look at data as well, and then make any instructional decisions that need to be in place to help that alignment within all of the content with the math, including geometry as well. So currently underway with that. I will say that, so we are working with teacher representatives on the math course of study team. So every grade level from kindergarten through 8th grade are represented on this team, as well as junior high and high school courses. So that is an ongoing conversation about geometry, not only at the high school where that course lives, but all of the content standards about geometry that begin from a very early age, and ensuring that that alignment is in place. The second part of the question, so.
Can I read, because
Yes,
the ODE purchase ZERN Math. Do students who have not met proficiency on last year's state test have access to this free program?
Yes, so the ODE has given districts access to ZERN for 6th through 8th grade. We have already looked into it and signed up and said, yes, we're in. ZERN access won't begin until January, but as soon as it does, then we will definitely look at for its implementation, how it can be used in 6th through 8th grade.
Can I add a piece to that, please?
Yes.
So
please.
I'm Kelly Wagner. I'm the assistant superintendent. I remembered to introduce myself.
Well done.
So another piece related to the geometry piece specifically, and this is happening in all buildings, but we'll use geometry as an example. So the building administrators and teachers are digging into that assessment data, looking at those standards to identify any trends, any themes. For example, in geometry, are the standards surrounding circles perhaps maybe an area? So we look at the 5 standards that the students scored the best on. As a whole, the 5 standards students scored the worst on, for lack of a better term, as a whole grade level, but you can also break that down by teacher and by student. So the buildings are doing a lot of that work. And then also the ODE has assessments that we can access. They're called the Restart Readiness Assessments. They've got it for every tested subject area that has a state test assigned to it. And they are essentially released questions from older assessments. But what's great about them is that, number one, 100% aligned to the standards. So really we're teaching the standards, not teaching to the test. We want to teach the standards. So they're 100% aligned to the standards. But the other part of it is that they're in the same format and platform as those air assessments. So kids are getting practice not only on the content, which is the most important piece, but also navigating that site, if you will. And so those results are being used again by our buildings. And we're doing that throughout all the other grade levels, but specifically to your question about geometry as well. So that's building level work also going on there.
Great. Reed had a question. I reached out to Reed. He was a little late, so he didn't hear the protocol. So I don't know his last name or his role, his relationship to the district, but he did have a good question about early childhood education. Wanting to know if any consideration has been, have we considered creating a central preschool option in its own building? And the follow-up to that is, if not, how are you thinking of improving the experience for preschoolers in terms of transportation, access, inclusion, and opening up more spots for enrollment in the program?
Yeah. Reed, that's a great question.
Yep.
Chad Lewis, superintendent, but I was here a number of years ago prior to the $130 million worth of construction that we completed. And I will tell you, Reed, we asked that very question. We looked at the different grade level configurations and we presented a number of options to our community for them to consider. What would you like our school district to look like when we're finished with this construction? And one of those options was a centrally located early childhood center that would have been on the campus of E.H. Green Intermediate School. That would have also led us down a path of combining E.H. Green, and we looked at two different configurations, a 5-8 building, and we looked at a 6-8 building and moving 5 back to the elementaries. The elementaries would have been 1 through 5. I will tell you, Reed, that based on the data that came in, it was a polarizing option. People did not like it. They liked the idea of expanding our preschool options. They did not like the idea of having a standalone building. And I think the majority of the reason, again, this is just I'll say this is Chad Lewis, non-superintendent, just my opinion. It's based on the proximity of how long some of those bus rides would have been for our youngest learners coming from Sims or from Blue Ash on the outskirts of those areas to the middle of the district. It could be a longer bus ride. Now, I will tell you, parents, as a parent of kids that have ridden the bus since kindergarten, they have never complained about a bus ride. Most kids love the bus. For the most part, they love the bus. So I will say as they get older, they complain about the bus, but younger, they love the bus. The other thing I would say from a preschool standpoint, as part of the master facility plan, we did expand our preschool options. We used to only have 8 sections of preschool. We went to 12 sections of preschool. And that expansion happened as part of the Sims Elementary expansion. So 8 of those sections are at Sims, 4 of the sections are at Blue Ash. So I will say currently we do not have any plans to expand more, but doesn't mean that conversation won't come up with our school board, because we do have concerns about early childhood intervention. We do believe that intervening with our students as early as 3 is good for their development long-term. And I would say Reed, you didn't ask this question, but I think another development out of that is probably looking at full-day kindergarten for all students. Is certainly something that's on our radar to talk with our school board about in the near future.
So funny, Reed responded, he apologized. He said Reed is actually, it's actually his kid's name. He's
That's fantastic.
a preschooler and 2nd grader, so.
Well, in that case, Reed.
Go to bed.
Reed, we hope you have a good day at school.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay, so the next question is from, I'm sorry again, Simcha Cockley. She is son is a 7th grader at the junior high. And the question is, what future plans are related to technology, like classes, grades? There are too many tools to log into currently, and teachers are using different tools. Speaking of Google Classroom, Canvas. So can you talk a little bit about where we're headed?
Sure. I wish our technology director, Christian Long, were here, also known as Chewbacca, if you saw any social media.
Oh, you're not supposed to give that away.
Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't him. It was the legit real Chewbacca. So Kelly Wagner, Assistant Superintendent. So 2 years ago, our former technology director, Bill Fritz, went through a process with a team of teachers and administrators from grades K through 12 to identify a new learning management system, because Blackboard was going away as that learning management system, but also because we heard feedback from our parents that we have to go to too many places. And so we now have Canvas. We're in the 2nd year of that, and we are in the process of providing professional learning, opportunities for teachers, job embedded training from one of our fabulous instructors, Chris Gutermuth in the technology department, to really just help teachers transition, if you will, to that piece. I know that there is conversation happening between technology and curriculum in terms of trying to streamline some of those pieces. So it's balancing the need of making things easier for the end user as a student, as a parent, but then also honoring what the teachers may need for their classroom to run efficiently. So it's that fine balance. But we do believe that Canvas is the first step to really start to streamline some of those pieces.
Yes.
And Ms. Tompkins, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or not.
Yeah, so what parents might have noticed this year is as teachers are transitioning to Canvas, that there might be some teachers who are still using other LMSs. So for instance, Google Classroom, but teachers are working diligently this year to make that transition so that the LMS from which students and parents will access instructional materials will be through Canvas. So that will definitely be improving.
And please give your
Great.
teaching staff a
Yes.
shout out.
Yes.
Pat them on the back.
Yes.
They're really working hard, and there are
They are.
numerous teachers in the district that are really implementing it well. And it's just going to take time as people get more comfortable with the tool. It becomes more significant for the end user, which is, we certainly want our parents to feel like they have access to what they need all in one place for ease of end user. So, but please give them a pat on the back. They're doing a great job.
They're doing
They
fabulous
are.
work.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Okay. Let's see. Through here. Please submit your questions if you have any additional questions in the chat. Make sure you include your name and your relation to the district. So the last few years, I'm sorry. Hold on. Go back and see who this is. Okay. Katie English, parent. And Katie wants to know, we've seen a steep rise in challenging behaviors and mental health concerns. What are our plans to address the social, emotional, and mental health needs of students?
Who would like to take that? I can start with that one.
We can tag team.
We can tag team it.
Yep.
Right. Thank you for the question. Really appreciate that. Again, Kelly Wagner, Assistant Superintendent. So one of the really important pieces within our multi-tier systems of support framework is our positive behavioral intervention system, so PBIS. And that really intentional teaching from a behavioral perspective on appropriate behaviors and managing behaviors, those types of things. So that from a behavior perspective is really instrumental in terms of that tier one, which means for all students instruction. It's been in the elementaries for a while. You may have heard the 4 Bs, those of you that are elementary parents, and it is now rolling up to the high school. So the high school is doing some significant work. So again, shout out to those folks up there in the areas of PBIS. We also still have a partnership with Cincinnati Children's, and they provide us mental health counselors as well for students who may have a more significant need than a school counselor might be able to support for them. And so looking at that whole spectrum, if you will, of supports.
Yeah, I was going to say that, when we think about the incidences of behaviors, we could also throw in their attendance.
Yes.
We are not unique. There are national trends coming out of the pandemic across schools across the nation. And so through our MTSS structure that we're implementing, going through training, what we're striving to do is address the whole child. And look at how we can support families to not only re-engage their students back in the school systems, but also looking at those challenging behaviors or those things that we got comfortable doing at home learning that we now have to reteach at school because we're now part of a collective community versus alone. And that may feel weird because we're almost 4 years out of the pandemic, but the reality is we still are trying to wrap our hands around the change that we saw from the pandemic. And I'm never the one to like to blame things on the pandemic, but I think the reality is that we have to think different and about many of these challenges and think about how we support our community. Last year, I think it was last year, Mr. Lewis, one of the SAC projects was really looking at supports within the community. Because we're recognizing it's not just a school issue to solve, it's a community issue to solve. And so I really am excited about MTSS, the things that we're doing around that. I'm really excited about everybody kind of rallying and saying, what do we need to do to support our students and families for success?
And we apologize to you, our end users, educators. We use a lot of acronyms.
We do.
Yeah,
We
sorry.
wouldn't be able to live without them, but you know, we will, at an upcoming board meeting, we will be having a more detailed discussion around multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS. So, you know, please tune in for that. Certainly we will try to do our best to communicate that out when that'll be occurring, because I do think it's important, not only for our school board, but for our community to better educate yourselves around MTSS and what that means. But also, this is not just a school issue. It's certainly, we all have to stay in it together as a Sycamore family, as a Sycamore community. We have to work together to make the impact on our students that we need to make. So, you know, please tune in for that.
I'd also like to throw out from a funding standpoint, you know, you mentioned the pandemic and how students were prior to and when they came back to us. There were quite a few federal dollars that were sent to school districts to help with the impact on that learning loss for our students. And we knew that the mental health piece would be a factor there. Sycamore was not unlike other school districts in allocating some of their federal dollars that they receive to help with that impact as well. So I just want to throw that out, that we did utilize some federal dollars. And
It's a good point.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
So Andrew D is a parent of a junior high student, wanting to know if we are taking any proactive steps to prevent conflicts like we're seeing on college campuses with the recent events overseas.
So, you know, Andrew, great question. I think our building leaders, our building guidance counselors, our building mental health counselors, and also our teaching staff are always on alert, especially around times of conflict or when there are significant nationwide and community events or worldwide events going on. I think they stay on high alert, and, you know, they work closely with their administration at the building to identify, you know, any issues that might be coming up, and certainly engage with those students and help educate them the best we can. You know, again, just with any conflict resolution process, we engage with our students. We try to walk through it with them and try to help them make good decisions, and certainly still be respectful of the feelings and emotions that they might have around a particular topic. So I can say at this point, we have not had any significant behaviors around that. We've had some unrelated student issues, but overall, from a proactivity standpoint, it's really the continued monitoring and really engagement and building relationships with our students that I think have led to us not having some of those issues. And the other thing we talk to our students and we talk to our community about is, if you see something, say something. You know, we need to know about it and get that information to us. And we have a anonymous tip line. If you don't feel comfortable giving your name or giving your information, there's an anonymous tip line to be able to offer that information for us to look into. So multiple ways for us to continue to make sure we stay tuned in to our students and what's going on with them.
Great. Maggie Gunnarsson is a parent in the district and a part of the parent group Gear around Gifted, had a question around about Gifted, specifically wanting to know students, let's see, were the growth scores down in both math and reading, or was it one or the other in the elementary schools as far as Gifted goes, and how did unserved students growth compare to served students growth?
So that's a big question to answer in just a couple minutes. Let me give an overview. So know that taking a look at report card data is something that both we do at a district level and buildings and teachers are doing on an ongoing basis. So, you know, really digging into our data to look at not only achievement data, but growth data as well within, and this question specific to math and reading. So we did see a dip in growth from last school year to this school year. That's offset a little bit. So something to keep in mind is because of the pandemic, there was an interruption of test scores and data collected. So typically value-added scores are based on multiple years worth of data. So the more data that you get into the data pool, the more stable that data is going to be once we get it. So the first year, we had a reset because of the pandemic. So the first year of our value added data was actually last year. So last year there was 1 year's worth of student data over the course of Ohio that determined those value add, those gifted growths. This year, so for this school year, there were 2 years. What we're always looking for is 3 years worth of data in order to say that we've got enough of a pool of scores to have some really stable trend data to take a look at. So knowing that that's a little bit of a factor, so we're only now building up our growth data and thinking about how does that impact the scores. But we did see a dip in growth. So data doesn't answer questions for us. Data gives us a platform for us to be able to ask those questions. And those are exactly the questions that we're asking now. So we're asking why was there potentially a dip in value added scores from the previous school year? So from 21-22 to 22-23. Were there anything different with instructional practices? For whom did that data go up and down? So again, those are conversations that we're having at the district level and the building data, level, and also pulling in map growth data as well, because the state OST data is a different source of growth data than our map data. So we're able to look at the child from 2 different perspectives of growth and mesh those together, and then be able to ask those questions for in order to make some curricular determinations.
Okay, check the chat and see what's come in so far again. Let's see, related again to state assessments and the state report card. Travis Harrison, parent, curious why the district is so focused on state assessments and doing well in the state report card.
Great question, and other people can chime in, but Travis, one of the reasons that we have to remain focused on it is the way we are assessed by our state. It is important to whether or not you believe in state testing or not, or the way it's done. It's the current method and model by which we are measured to be a successful school district or not. And I will say we are charged to pay attention to those scores and certainly do our best to make sure we are covering the state standards and making sure that our students are best prepared for that test. I will tell you, and I can speak for this team because I know the messaging that we provide to our staff. We are not test prep nation. We are not asking our teachers to teach to the test. We are not asking for all creativity to be removed from teaching. That's just not the way we do business. Our mindset is if we teach and make sure that the state standards are covered, the scores will happen. If we stay focused on making sure that we provide the best and most creative education for our students, those good things will happen. And so far, just making sure that we are using materials, we are making sure that our alignment is there, has resulted in, I'll say, a realignment and making sure that our state scores have come up. I will tell you from realtors in the area, people do use it to shop for school districts. So we want to remain a desired school district for people to come to. Our enrollment is on the uptick and uprise, and that's a good thing. That means people want to come here. They believe in what we're doing here. And we've been one of the highest rated school districts in the state for the last couple of years. And we're very proud of that. And so doesn't mean that we're not focused on other things. You've heard tonight us mention the whole child and making sure that we provide opportunities for everyone to reach their full potential. For every kid, that doesn't mean scoring advanced plus at the highest level on the state test. It might be that they went from limited to proficient, and that might be the best that they can do. And that's a good thing when we help them reach that next tier. So I would say we have to remain focused on it because it is a measure that we pay attention to, but it is not our sole measure of success as a school district. And certainly there are so many good things that go on in this school district. When you look at our music programs, you look at our theater programs, you look at our arts, you look at our extracurriculars, our athletics, our clubs, our activities. We're very proud of all those things as well. So Sorry, I may have taken over that question. a
It's
little
all
bit,
yours.
but
It's
jump
all,
in
it's
there
fine.
If there's anything else I missed, so.
Okay, just a few more minutes for questions, so we'll try to get to as many of these as we can. Stephanie Patel is a community member and a future parent of an aviator. She's asked, as a parent of a future aviator, I'm planning on voting on Tuesday for the school board. Just curious if the district has an endorsement for who they would like to see elected to the Board of Education.
Stephanie, I'm sorry, we do not, per board policy and also just, for our own safety, we don't we don't get involved in school elections. And the biggest thing is our job is to work with the 5 people that this community elects. And we're willing to work with anyone that has a passion for students, that has a passion for the work of school districts. And really, I think all 5 candidates are engaged for the right reasons, which is making sure that our students have every opportunity to be successful. So out of the people sitting up here, I'm the only one that lives in the district. And not because they wouldn't love to live in the district. It's just, it's one of the requirements for me. My students go to school here. I get 2 votes coming up on next Tuesday, and that's our engagement right there. That's our engagement as a team. So certainly I encourage you to go watch the candidate forum that was put on by the PTO. It's a great way to get engaged and find out more about the candidates. The other thing I would encourage you to do is reach out to each candidate individually. They're happy to talk with you, and you can get a really good feel for who you might think might be best to represent you and your future aviator. So great question, and sorry I can't give you more information.
Okay, this next question is from Sagar Parek. I'm sorry, Sagar, if I didn't pronounce your last name correctly. Parent of a high schooler. Curious why the district doesn't alert families immediately to threats or disciplinary action, which I think if Sagar maybe joined a little late, we did
Yeah.
discuss a little bit of this already, but just briefly, the communication
I'll let you.
something happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think I touched on this briefly, so you can always go back and listen to the recording. I'm Brad Lovell, Director of Business and Student Operations. I kind of talked about those 2 buckets, right? We talk about the safety of students in the school community, and then the idea of student privacy. And so when we make decisions about alerting the community, it's taking those 2 things into consideration and making the best judgment call at that time. I think we always want to be cautious too of desensitizing our community and our parents to things that are happening, so that if there truly is an emergency or something happening, that the alerts that they're aware that it's important they listen to. I think we can all recognize the fact in our life, we have a lot of information coming at us. I know as a parent of school age kids, there's a lot of information in newsletters, Remind app, you name it, right? And so we want to walk that line to give the right information at the right time that we believe is most important to our families related to the safety of their child.
And I would encourage you, if you feel like that you're not getting enough information, or you feel like there's a situation that we're not aware of, or some kind of unsafe situation, contact the building administration.
Absolutely.
They're happy to talk with you about it. I spend a lot of time at the high school, and I will tell you, it is a very calm, welcoming, and safe environment every time I'm there. There's always can be incidents that pop up, but I will tell you that every single day, I believe in what they're doing up there, and I believe that it is a great environment for students to learn in.
Mhm.
All right, so we have 1 minute left, so I'm gonna try to get one last question. You think we could tackle
Sure,
one
yeah,
last
let's
one?
go.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
The question is, hold on. Again, I'm scrolling and having issues with scrolling. The question is from Sarah Cook, parent of a junior high student, and I don't know, this might be a more junior high specific question. But if we can address it, we can.
Try to help.
Give it a shot.
Wanting to know why there are no locks for the lockers at the junior high.
Oh.
Just worried about
Yeah.
our student
Yeah.
Their coat to school now that it's colder.
Yeah,
Sure.
gosh, man, I could take an hour to talk about locks and lockers, believe it or not. Obviously the lockers have been installed over there. There are different types of locks that you can get for lockers, believe it or not. Those are everything from built-in to hanging ones to ones that come with combinations, the one that comes with keys. The long and short of it is that an order was placed and the wrong locks arrived. That is a long lead time product for the ones that we need. I've worked with the junior high. They have been purchased. I cannot answer specifically when those are going to be arriving. But I am always happy to follow up with Mrs. Shunk over there. We had a very similar issue at the high school in the midst of supply chain and everything. So it's not uncommon, but I can follow up with Ms. Shunk as well.
And I will say, stay tuned to your junior high administration. We met with a group of students the other day and we discussed with the students kind of the backpack policy and lockers and coats. And so we had a great discussion with the students, getting their feedback on kind of how they would like to see the junior high move forward, even when lockers are available. So.
Okay, well, it is 8:16, so.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
This has been great.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. This won't be the only opportunity to engage and ask questions. We will certainly have future opportunities. We will be looking for various ways to involve the community, whether it be community conversations, whether it be more opportunities in person and virtual opportunities. So we love engaging with you. We love hearing from you. So stay tuned for future opportunities and have a good evening.
Have a good night.
Go
folks.
A's.
Thank you.
All right, 1 second to end the recording.